1992 was in many ways to mark the climax of the acrimonious breakdown of the royal marriage. This was to be the year famously dubbed by the Queen as her Annus Horribilis. Prince Charles and Diana were making a state visit to India. Press speculation on the state of their marriage was at fever pitch.
By the time Charles and Diana went to India, they were not sharing the same room on their official tours. They were in separate rooms, and this was explained to me as, well, when they get up in the morning, she's got a lot to do and she has dresses to choose. Charles has a lot to do. Again, a reasonably valid explanation. But I think by the time we got to India, I may be wrong here, but I think they were in separate palaces.
The trip turned out to be a public relations disaster for the prince. The sight of Princess Diana alone in front of the romantic Taj Mahal, a monument to love, was too good an opportunity for the press to miss, and they went to town on the symbolism.
I think everybody remembers the pose of Diana in front of the Taj Mahal. I actually set that picture up. Two people can only do so much, so the game plan is that we split them. Prince of Wales had already been to the Taj Mahal, Diana hadn't, and it made sense that she went there and the Prince of Wales went to address a business conference that was likely to lead to millions of pounds worth of exports, and he went and did that in Bangalore.
A wiser prince than I would have opted for a visit to the Taj Mahal, which I believe is where some, at least, of the greatest pundits of the press think I ought to be anyway, rather than making a greater fool of myself here.
He was right. The barrage of publicity which greeted the princess alone at the Taj Mahal put the royal couple under further intense pressure. Later, during the trip to India, an incident at a polo match added fuel to the frenzied stories of a marriage breakdown.
There was a certain amount of angst at the polo match. What happened was that she was going to present the medals and the trophies, and the Prince of Wales came forward first to pick up his medal and just walked away, and sort of got back halfway back to the rest of his teammates and suddenly realised, perhaps I should have given the missus a peck on the cheek. So he went back, but, you know, from Diana's point of view, it was too late. And what she did, she turned her head to the left, and the Prince of Wales's lips planted on her ear. And the press had their photograph, and they had their story, and camera doesn't lie. What can you say?
These were all pretty obvious signs that this was a show that was no longer working. I mean, this was a train that was coming off the rails, whatever metaphor you want to use. We were coming to a precipice.
Soon afterwards, Princess Diana's father died. Prince Charles's presence at a time of intense personal grief was distressing to Princess Diana. But the prince felt it was a matter of public duty to be at her father's funeral. After the service, Prince Charles slipped away quietly on his own. Relations between the royal couple reached rock bottom. By now, it was more than a decade since the royal wedding, and probably 8 years since the real marriage had actually ended. Princess Diana couldn't stand either the pain or the publicity any longer, but she was not going to go quietly.
I suspect that Diana saw that her husband's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles was running very smoothly, was very agreeable for both of them, but saw, by contrast, that her own attempts at adultery had brought nothing but private disappointment and public criticism. And I imagine that she, in those circumstances, would readily say to herself, well, the hell with this. If we're both guilty of adultery, if I'm going to be constrained by this marriage and he is not, then I'm going to blow the whistle on it. I'm going to tell the truth about what is going on, or at least half the truth of what is going on, because whatever comes as a result can't be any worse than I'm having to endure at the moment.
I think she had a strong feeling that people should know that her life was a sham. I think she wanted, perhaps cruelly to, out Charles and Camilla. I think she wanted the people on her side. I think she had this great feeling, I've got my people and they should know. And basically, I suppose she was sort of unconsciously making her way towards taking an independent position.
Princess Diana chose a very high-risk way out. For a royal, an almost unthinkable course of action.
You know who is doing you know what? How am I supposed to feel?
She secretly recruited a journalist to blow the story wide open.
I thought our love was real.
Princess Diana talked to me, I think, because she was basically at her wit's end. It's something which I didn't realise and nobody realised.
Say you can't believe everything you hear.
It so happened that I was someone who was sympathetic to her, knew her circle, and was not associated with any newspaper, magazine. I was basically a lone operator and therefore could be trusted. I was launched into an extraordinary world of subterfuge and collusion where the princess was being asked questions by me via a proxy, via a mutual friend who would go to Kensington Palace on his bicycle with a battered old tape recorder, go into her sitting room, munch his way through a plate of biscuits and a pot of tea, and ask her the most intimate questions about her life. And I remember the first time I listened to a tape, I mean, I was expecting some kind of story about how wonderful life was inside Kensington Palace, but I was mesmerised by the fact that she talked about her eating disorder, about her attempted suicide attempts, and this woman that very few people had heard of at the time, a lady called Camilla Parker Bowles.
Buckingham Palace officials have denied once again today that the Princess of Wales cooperated in any way with the book and refuses to dignify its claims with any further comments. But the repercussions are continuing.